Hello everyone, and welcome back to Presidio Bay. If you missed episode 2, be sure to watch it to stay caught up with the story. Located across the bay from Santa Isidora, the bayfront city of Encinal was the natural landing place for tens of thousands of refugees from the earthquake and fire. Encinal's history before the earthquake was brief. Much like other parts of the Bay Area, the Spanish Crown claimed First Nations land and gave it to Spanish settlers. Most of the East Bay was grouped into the Rancho San Antonio and given to Luis Peralta, a decorated Spanish soldier well known for leading major charges against the First Nations. After Luis's death, his 4 sons and 5 daughters inherited his rancho. The Peraltas struggled to maintain control of the land they owned after the gold rush. Hundreds of settlers tried to claim their own parts of the valuable land. In the early 1850s, Horace Carpentier and 2 associates founded the town of Encinal on the Peraltas' rancho. The Peraltas quickly filed complaints with the U.S. government, rightfully claiming that their land holdings were protected. But Carpentier himself managed to become their legal representative and had negotiated to receive even more land as payment. After a long, drawn-out investigation, the U.S. Supreme Court confirmed that the initial settlements had been illegal, but it was too late. Encinal had become a full-fledged city, and huge amounts of the land were now legally in the hands of Carpentier.
The founding of the city of Encinal was met with rapid growth and scandal. After becoming the city's first mayor, Horace Carpentier was quickly removed from power after citizens discovered that he had leveraged his roles in city leadership and state government to secure permanent and exclusive rights to the entire western waterfront of Encinal. He managed to take over the hugely valuable waterfront property in exchange for the construction of a single dock, 1 schoolhouse, and $5, all before being run out of power. Encinal grew quickly as a rail hub owing to its location due east of Santa Isidora. Railroads built long piers into the shallow waters of the bay to shorten the distance ferries had to travel. The main pier, the Coast Range Railroad's Long Wharf, served as the passenger and mail gateway to Santa Isidora. It was typically faster for the traffic to transfer to ferries and ships than to take the train south along the bay and back up the peninsula again. As the Coast Range presence grew, Horace Carpentier made one final move to screw over the city he founded, selling his entire waterfront land holdings to the railroad for a huge and still undisclosed sum of money, before fleeing east to Gramercy.
After this purchase, the Coast Range's domination of the waterfront was complete. They skillfully merged with local rail companies to ensure that every inch of coastline belonged to them, gaining a monopoly over Pacific trade to inland areas of the country. They expanded their facilities and constructed huge rail yards and lavish passenger terminals to entrench their power. In January 1906, the Alta California, a rival railroad, built a new yard on fresh landfill that the Coast Range believed they owned. In an overnight attack bold enough to require more than 24 armed company soldiers as guards, the Alta connected their new yard with a track over the Coast Range main line. The new yard and track connection shattered the Coast Range's waterfront monopoly and prompted an immediate legal battle. After a grueling trial, the courts ruled that the new landfill wasn't covered by the original land deal, so the Alta was legally allowed to build there. The Coast Range, in a desperate attempt to continue their 40-year stranglehold on the waterfront, launched the Harbor Commission, a partnership with the Alta to keep any additional challengers out. This was quickly seen as anti-competitive and quashed by Encinal's city leadership. In response, the city opened the Port of Encinal as a public entity to control the waterfront, finally opening up the harbor and the bay for the first time since the city's founding.
The city was faced with new challenges just months after they managed to put the waterfront disputes to bed. Hundreds of thousands of refugees from the earthquake and fire in Santa Isidora pushed Encinal to its limits. While many refugees moved beyond Encinal to other parts of the bay and beyond, the city's population doubled to over 150,000 people. A building boom immediately began as the city of Encinal annexed nearby land, including other towns and surviving pieces of ranchos. Encinal consolidated power from more than 10 smaller settlements, forming a single monolithic entity with a hole in it. The small town of Savoy Heights refused to join and became a completely surrounded enclave. Carpenters and architects, working at a breakneck pace, created a new architectural vernacular of distinctive neoclassical-styled detached row houses, perfect for the sunnier, warmer side of the bay.
This rapid expansion locked in a patchwork street grid as farms and large landholdings were subdivided and broken up to become housing developments. Developers, builders, and refugees claimed any available land in the area, from the hills inland right down to the coast. Not even Ohlone burial grounds were spared from development. The Ohlone had buried their dead in combination refuse dumps and ceremonial burial sites known as shell mounds. These were excavated and destroyed, typically before archaeologists or anthropologists could document the site. These burial grounds were built over for nearly any purpose, for housing, industry, rail yards, and in one location, for a dance hall. The shell mounds also provided a convenient source of raw materials. Mortar for many masonry structures in Encinal was made from the oyster shells and human bones that had made up the mounds. The furious pace of development resulted in environmental harm too. Natural features of the area were filled in and covered over to make room for more housing. The nearby oak forests, which had given Encinal its name, were clear-cut to provide suitable housing for new residents.
Encinal's new development was heavily influenced by its transit network. By the time of the earthquake, the East Bay had the key system, thanks to the work of Francis Marion Borax Smith, a mining tycoon and co-founder of the dubiously named Realty Syndicate. Borax Smith got his nickname and made his first fortune by hauling borax, a chemical used in nearly all cleaning products and detergents, from the Nevada desert to a nearby railroad using 20 mule teams pulling large wooden wagons. He turned the arduous process into a lucrative brand, and you can still buy 20 Mule Team Borax today and visit 20 Mule Team Canyon in Death Valley. Like many other privately developed transit systems, the key system was built as a real estate play. The Realty Syndicate bought remote land cheaply, built modern electric streetcars and interurban routes, and then sold the land at a massive profit to cover the costs of construction. Big Mood Energy has a fantastic video on the topic if you're interested in more. To jumpstart his system, Smith purchased companies through Encinal, Bancroft, and Peralta, consolidating them into one large operation. Using the abandoned yard and dock of a failed narrow-gauge railroad, the key system built a long pier that would become the heart of its network for decades. The pier even gave the system its name, as the system maps resembled a skeleton key, with handle loops for Bancroft and Encinal, a long pier as the shaft of the key, and the teeth that represented the ferry berths at the end of the pier.
Huge real estate ventures by the Realty Syndicate anchored key system routes, allowing the owners to leverage their transit network to promote their own destinations. Two major hotels, the Claremont and the Key Route Inn, were served by major routes, with the Key Route Inn even having the system's busiest trunk line run directly through the building. The Syndicate also built out Edora Park, an amusement park in northern Encinal. The routes to these ventures became the bones for the East Bay. Fast, reliable access to the city and quiet electric trains running along them led to huge population growth along these corridors. In many parts of the city, the Realty Syndicate even developed lots with transit-facing walkways, passages, and staircases, creating a distinct organization to the new development. Borax Smith was an innovator, and his key system developed many new inventions and improvements of old ideas. Most notably, the pantograph, now a staple of electric transportation, was designed by the key system, allowing key trains to run at higher speeds than competing trolleys without the risk of a trolley pole falling off the wire. The development of the pantograph was not without its issues. John Brown, the key system employee credited with his invention, was tragically decapitated while testing the system when he was struck by a catenary pole. The key system was constructed with grand regional ambitions. Local streetcar networks would connect to fast express trains, all powered by electricity. The Key had even put together one of the earliest plans for an underwater crossing of the bay. In order to shorten the distance that slow ferries had to travel, Key system engineers proposed converting the end of their pier to a tunnel portal and running trains underwater to Cabo Buena Island. Smith figured he could monopolize the market by offering a ride far speedier than any potential competitors, including the Coast Range.
While the tunnel was never built, the Key system's fast, reliable trains managed to reliably beat the Coast Range's aging steam service, and the system began to expand. The mainline route to downtown Encinal opened in May of 1906, narrowly missing the chance to haul the initial waves of earthquake refugees, but it proved an immensely useful connection to Santa Isidora throughout the rebuilding efforts. With Encinal growing and finally using the Key system more substantially, Borax Smith turned to expansion. If the network could expand south to the agricultural center of the region in Mariposa, Smith thought that it would make the system strong enough to take on the Coast Range. To finance this, Smith managed to raise more than $250 million by selling stock in the Realty Syndicate. He then began to consolidate his huge variety of small companies into a single entity.
This proved to be his undoing. For years, Smith had been carefully managing his huge portfolio of ventures, with each lending money to each other, sharing labor with each other, and even making major purchases for each other, depending on which enterprise had the largest lines of credit and least debt. Smith's practices were an open secret, but his skills at moving money and hiding debts allowed him to stay afloat until he began to consolidate. As he combined his businesses, all the hidden debt rose to the surface, and Borax Smith was forced out of his own company by his board of directors. While the Key System's dream of connecting all three major cities in the Bay Area never came true, Borax Smith's visionary system allowed development and construction to house hundreds of thousands of earthquake refugees without leaving the Bay Area. It also struck fear into the hearts of the Coast Range. Key System was built using the same playbook that the Coast Range had used 40 years before to build out the bedroom communities south of downtown Encinal and in nearby Peralta. But the Key's faster electric interurban trains made the Coast Range's steam locomotives seem antiquated. Scared by competition on all sides of its business, thanks to the Key System and the Alta, the Coast Range's directors launched a large-scale modernization program, including kicking off the electrification of their East Bay routes.
While new neighborhoods grew and thrived, established areas reaped the rewards from increased business. The Encinal Waterfront and the neighboring city of Peralta, in particular, leveraged their railroad connections and relative large size to become a shipbuilding and trade hub as demand shifted east. Less than a decade before the earthquake, the now thriving estuary was just a mucky backwater with marshy wetlands. Peralta used to be a peninsula until 1902, when after 30 years of intense earthwork, a tidal canal was dredged, transforming it into an island. The earth removed for the canal was used to make neighboring Bay Farm Island into a peninsula. The engineered channel was a boon to industry, as access to both the Transcontinental Railroad and Pacific shipping made Encinal and Peralta a vital trade connection. Industries opened along both sides of the estuary to take advantage of the new channel. Lumber wholesalers brought lumber down from up north, and produce canning operations processed the crops grown in the South Bay and Central Valley.
On the Encinal side of the channel, the Moore Shipbuilding Company built a new facility to replace their Santa Isidora one destroyed in the earthquake. The shipbuilders made brisk business as cheap materials flowed in by train and out as finished ships, ready for the growing Pacific trade. Across the channel in Peralta, the Alaska Packing Company's fleet of sailing ships used the new channel to provide safe harbor for much of their fleet. Every year, the entire fleet would spend the summers off the coast of Alaska collecting salmon in huge quantities. In the fall, they'd sail back to the bay and transfer their stock to rail cars bound for the rest of the country. Peralta was the winter home for their star fleet of steel-hulled tall ships. The calm waters and comfortable climate allowed for a huge cost savings over having to maintain and keep a steam-powered fleet elsewhere. With expanded transit, tens of thousands of new houses, and growing industries, Encinal transformed from a small satellite town founded off the back of repeated land grifts to the powerhouse of the East Bay in just 50 years, establishing the story of Presidio Bay as one of a region more than a single city.
If you like this episode, want first access to future episodes, or would like early access to the custom assets used in Presidio Bay, please consider joining our Patreon. Every dollar put in goes directly into improving the series, from custom assets to in-depth research to helping with the costs of making these videos. For as little as $1 a month, you can be part of making Presidio Bay a success. Join at patreon.com/Presidio Bay. And remember to subscribe here for more videos, asset creation streams, and other updates. You can follow me on Twitter at interurban_e and Bisquicklehausen at Bisquickle. Our next episode will be on my channel, Interurban Era. The link is in the description. Don't forget to head over there to continue the story. Before we go, we'd like to extend our gratitude to the incredible Tom Coletti, at Tom Coletti on Twitter, for the fantastic Presidio Bay theme music. And of course, thank you to all of our Patreons for making this possible. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Presidio Bay.